Jó napot kívánok, üdvözlök mindenkit a Republikon Intézet Liberalizmus az illiberalizmus szorításában című rendezvényén. A rendezvénynek az első panele angol nyelven lesz, illetve az előadások is angol nyelven lesznek. Itt szinkron tolmácsolást igénybe vehetnek, hogyha Zoomon követnek minket, akkor a jobb alsó földgömb gombra kattintva, a német nyelvet kiválasztva követhetik magyar szinkrontolmácsolásban a rendezvény első részét, és akkor, hogyha megengedik, hogy most átváltok angol nyelvre. So, good day everybody, welcome all of you at this conference of Republikon Institute. This conference is supported by the Friedrich Naumann Stiftung für die Freiheit, and today we are going to discuss liberalism in the grasp of illiberalism. First, I'd like to ask our Director of Strategy, Andrea Virag, to give us some opening remarks. Please, Andrea.
Thank you, Daniel. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome everyone joining today's conference, either here on Zoom or on Facebook. We are very happy that you decided to join us. As Daniel said, today we are going to discuss the state of liberalism, liberal voters, and the possibilities of liberal parties and politicians in our region, and at the second panel in Hungary. At the first English language half of the conference, with the help of our international speakers, we are going to discuss the state of liberalism in the V4 countries. We are going to hear a presentation on each of our countries and discuss the similarities or the differences between our countries. At the second Hungarian language part of the conference, we are going to discuss how liberal politicians can reach voters, what they can do in a country like Hungary, where, of course, the government is building an illiberal regime. As Daniel said, this conference is supported by the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom. So, of course, I would like to thank them for their support and cooperation, and of course would like to say a big thank you for our speakers for accepting our invitation and sharing their knowledge and experience on this subject. So without further ado, I would like to wish everyone a great conference, and Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Andrea. And let me introduce our panelists in an alphabetical order. Błażej Lenkowski is here from the Fundacja Liberty. He's the president of the Polish organization. Szarka Prat is the executive director of Institute for Politics and Society from the Czech Republic. Andrea Virag, or director of strategy from Republikon Institute, is going to represent the Hungarian liberal think tank Republikon. Viera Zuborova is the director of strategy at the Bratislava-based Policy Institute. And I'm also a colleague of Republikon Institute. I'm going to be your host and moderator in the first panel. In the second panel, as Andrea also mentioned, we are going to discuss very similar issues with Hungarian politicians. But let us start first with the presentation, because we asked our panelists, who's been very kind to accept this invitation, to hold around 10 minutes long presentation on liberal voters in the respective country. And I'd like to ask first Błażej to talk a bit about liberal voter behavior in Poland. Please, Błażej, the floor is yours.
Hello. Thank you very much for this kind invitation. It is really great. I'm really happy that our For Liberty EU network is working even in this hard pandemic times. It is really important to be in touch, to discuss, and not to lose this, I think, unique contact and network that we have built. So thank you very much for this invitation. You have given me the task to try to respond how parties can reach liberal voters and how liberals can fight against populism, and also about liberal voters in Poland. This is a kind of fundamental question, and I am afraid that almost nobody till now is able to find the proper answer in our region. So this is the real challenge, but I will try with a little bit different attitude, I think. I think that it is important to talk both about liberal voters, but also about liberal players and liberal parties, because I think that here is also a deep problem. So generally in Poland, more and more people are in favor of cultural liberalism. It is especially visible throughout last months, when we have been witnesses of huge protests against barbaric abortion law. It is especially a strong movement in terms of women. But at the same time, more and more people are generally left-oriented in terms of economic ideas. So this cultural liberalism is tied with left-oriented economic attitude. At the same time, and unfortunately, some free market ideas are taken by radical rights organizations, close even for some kind of nationalistic ideas even. This connection, in my opinion, has no deeper sense, but this is happening, and I think that this is rather bad for liberal parties, but at the same time, it is also a chance and a challenge. Partly, it is happening because we do not have the true liberal party now communicating with liberal voters and trying to get them just. Nowoczesna party is weak and is rather fighting for its place in big civic coalition, and is not speaking their voices, liberal voices, loud enough. And I think that this is the real problem, because we do not have strong liberal voice coherent liberal voice on the political area. Therefore, I think that it is very important to analyze own actions of liberal actors in Poland, even on the very basic level. For the success of liberal organization, generally we need to have 4 indispensable smart elements to reach the success. And I am afraid that in Poland, liberal parties, liberal organizations are weak because none of these elements is working good. So firstly, this is leader and leaders. It is quite obvious that in modern politics, the leader is absolutely crucial, is the key to success. Of course, we have different types and styles of leaders and leadership. Sometimes it should be somebody inspiring like Obama or Kennedy. Sometimes somebody hardworking, reliable, and balanced, like, for example, Angela Merkel. But the leader in modern world, in modern politics, in modern communication is the key to success. In Poland, analyzing liberal political leaders throughout last years, we have problems with appropriate leaders. But what is also interesting, at the same time, we have big problems with accepting leadership by the team. Bad choices of leaders are destroying organizations, and organizations are destroyed by permanent internal conflicts. Leaders, in my opinion, are too focused on themselves and their position rather than on building the organization. So we need better leaders, and at the same time, make people more focused on real aims of the organization than internal competitions and conflicts. I think that right-wing parties in Poland during last years dealt with this problem decisively better. The second thing is, of course, organization and resources. If you would like to have long-term political influence and success, you need to have strong and well-fit organization, ready to attract many interesting personalities, leaders, and talented people, and motivate them to work for it. Unfortunately, most of opposition parties in Poland are weak in terms of the structure and quality of human resources. It is more than a rule, I think, unfortunately, that leaders often care mainly not to have inside the organization significant competition for them, rather to build the most interesting teams and gather the best people. This is, I think, the big problem with ability to cooperate smoothly, with trust, with accepting the assumption that as a community we are one group, we should support each other and not fight internally. This is a really big problem in liberal organizations in Poland, and I think the big lesson for future. Liberal parties in Poland are also weak in terms of financial resources. The new parties are discriminated by the system of state subsidies that finance the largest parties currently present in the Polish parliament. So the system is in some way locked. However, for example, the interesting experiment of building the new organization and financing the new party mainly by crowdfunding is made now by the new party of Szymon Hołownia. I cannot say that this is liberal party, but this is the new body on Polish political stage, and decisively on opposition side to law and justice. The third point is, of course, the program. You have to tell your voters why they should vote for you. Not only that you will stop bad guys like law and justice, but your liberal program generally is something good, not the mistake. So clear and reliable political vision combined with concrete proposal important from different clusters and groups of your electorate. This is a basic. I think that many liberal politicians now are ashamed of liberal ideas in Poland and try to imitate in many elements their main competitor. The general mistake made by many parties and many politicians is to try to outbid the populist. It is just not possible. They will always offer more. They are better in this populistic game. You should be reliable on the other field. This is indispensable. In your program, you should search for elements that really touch people. The program should be a mix of big ideas and identity issues combined with concrete proposals of reforms. And I think that this is really good time for this. It is especially needed in terms of proposals of alternative solutions to fight with COVID-19 pandemic. And the last element is communication. You should have, of course, professional media and communication strategy, good tools, good research, target groups, different tools of communication. You should know what are you talking to different groups. I think that many politicians in Poland sometimes, when I am watching them, I just feel that politicians are going from one media TV talk to another media TV talk without any deeper plan what they would like to say, any strategy, just to react, just to criticize the most up-to-date political events. In my opinion, it has not deeper sense. And at the same time, I think that law and justice has really good communication strategy, and this is why of reasons why they are still winning. But so there are four, in my opinion, basic elements that has to be implemented efficiently to have the success of liberal organization. But at the same time, and this is my message from many months, liberal politicians, liberal thinkers cannot be ashamed of liberalism. We should be proud of it. Liberal ideas have greatly contributed to bringing the positive change in the world, to great leap in terms of wealth, while at the same time ensuring freedom and opportunity to grow. As regards international relations, it brings peace instead of conflicts. What is liberalism? It is a democratic system that safeguards the rights of all citizens, including rights of minorities that might be put in danger by rights of the majority. It is a system based on the rule of law, which protects individuals from arbitrary decisions of authorities. This is separation of powers that ensures a balanced system that defends it from abuse of one individual or a political group taking all the power. Liberalism is a system that guarantees human rights, personal liberties, women's rights, religious freedom, artistic freedom, the right to choose one's way of life, to conduct business and to hold property. Liberalism stressed the need of the state to follow the rule of equal opportunities of citizens, their equality before the law, with special emphasis to most vulnerable who should receive support to help them to deal with some problems. Liberalism champions such values as pursuing development, a Protestant work ethic, entrepreneurship, saving money, and the ability to manage the sustainable budget. It is small government, a reasonable state that eliminates bureaucratic absurdities, a state that cultivates support while at the same time being efficient and respecting the rules and quality of its services, aware of the fact that mediocrity may be the death of even the best ideas. Liberalism means believing in the power of science, the capability of human brain and humanism. It assumes the separation of the state from the church, a secular state in which all religions are accepted. It's liberalism who fight for the right to both practice the Catholic religion, for example, at the same time to have same-sex civil partnership. Liberals respect ideological choices of individuals and want to create a society where different people can peacefully coexist. I think that we should defend liberalism. We should be proud of liberalism, and I think that this is the key to success, and also the key to persuade voters, potential liberal voters, to support us. We should bring back liberalism and something good in the discussion, political discussion in Poland, in the region, and show people why this is so good and so beneficial system for them. So thank you very much for your time, and here I would like to finish my introduction.
Thank you very much, Blażej. I think these were very interesting points. I thought at the beginning that we are going to have a sociological panel, but it turns out that now we have a philosophical panel, which is, I think, very nice, so we can have a good conversation. I'd like to ask Sharka to continue with her, and we also like to hear your inputs. Please, Sharka.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. And yeah, thank you for inviting me to this panel. I'm from the Czech Republic, so I would like to discuss a little bit more about the liberalism here in the Czech Republic. Because the liberal ideologies can be expressed through different political movements or political parties. And here in the Czech Republic, we have quite plenty of them. I should definitely mention the movement ANO, Pirate Party, or Civic Democratic Party, or Top 09, or Mayors and Independents. But however, the multi-dimensional crisis affecting contemporary societies have shaken Czech society as well and impacted electoral behavior. And more voters are turning to so-called extreme parties. And extreme political parties use populist ideology and become an alternative to the traditional liberal parties. And this is the case, for example, for the SPD, which is a freedom and direct democracy in the Czech Republic. It's an extreme right-wing populist political party whose popularity is quite increasing in the country. But the Czech Republic has a complex historical relationship with liberalism, and the liberal discourse developed as a reaction to the history of communism. More than liberal policies, the reforms that were undertaken in the 1990s are a turning point in Czech politics. The introduction of a liberal policy in the Czech Republic was a way of asserting itself as an independent nation. Thus, liberalism has become a strong ideology in the Czech Republic, and most political parties claim to identify with this liberal doctrine. Liberalism became simply part of the Czech identity. And since the end of the Cold War, several political figures and movements have embodied the ideas of liberals. I definitely have to mention Václav Havel, who was the president of the Czech Republic and is considered to be a national hero who resisted communism and defended Western values. And he led this country along the path of economic and social liberalism. Another president, Václav Klaus, is the second Czech president, founded the Civic Democratic Party, which is actually the liberal conservative party. What is interesting today is the opposition of two liberal parties, which is the Civic Democratic Party and Movement ANO. Both are liberal parties, and yet they are in opposition. While this idea is complex to understand, it's important to remember that liberal ideology is present in most political movements. For example, the Movement ANO party is a liberal party, especially in the European Parliament, where is a part of the European fraction, Renew Europe. But to measure the weight of liberal voters in the Czech Republic, we can analyze the results of the parliamentary elections in recent years, and focusing on the parliamentary parties and their election results gives us an idea of the weight of liberal voters in the Czech Republic. And when analyzing the situation, it becomes clear that the electorate is gradually moving away from the traditional parties, such as Czech Social Democratic Party and Civic Democratic Party, and is instead moving towards the other liberal parties, such as ANO or Top 09. We also know the emergence of another political party, SPD, as an extreme right-wing movement, which was created in 2015, and it obtained 10% of the votes in 2017 in legislative elections. And it's almost the same result as a Civic Democratic Party. And populism specialists, some populism specialists, for example, Cas Mute defines populism as a thin ideology that sees society as divided between two camps that are both homogeneous and perfectly antagonistic, the pure people and the corrupt elite, and claims that the politics can only be the expression of the general will of the people. Thus, populism is based on three components, and it's a pure people, corrupt elite, and the general will. And this ideology is focused on the will of the people who must denounce the abuse of the elites. And populism is therefore based on a policy of separation, which aims to separate two camps, the good represented by the people and the evil in the image of the elites. And another important figure in this, for example, Ben Stanley, goes farther by explaining that populism is a thin ideology in front of liberalism or socialism, because populism doesn't propose real solutions and political programs. And it should be noted that populism has a bad reputation. However, depending on the angle of the analysis, it doesn't have the same value. In an authoritarian regime, populism can be the means for the population to assert itself. However, in a democratic regime in which the people's expression is framed by institutions, populism aims to make the will of the people triumph, to go beyond the established framework and to recognize the rights of minorities. And because the definition of populism is unclear, it's difficult to describe a party as populist. However, if we refer to the first definition, which I mentioned, the extreme right-wing Freedom and Democracy Party, SPD, led by the Tomio Okamura in the Czech Republic, seems to fit the characteristics perfectly. And Tomio Okamura's agenda is based on the fight against the Islamization of the Czech Republic and the exit from the European Union and an anti-immigration policy. And the question that needs to be asked is why this party is attracting more and more voters. It's vital to focus on the populistic rhetoric of the extreme right. Populistic discourse, especially from the extreme right wing, aims to address the people and reaffirm their rights. But by focusing on the interests of the people, this type of discourse and political rhetoric aims to raise questions of identity. And by talking about the people, it forges a kind of exclusion because it distinguishes people from a population of which they supposedly don't belong. And furthermore, populism defines the enemy of the people. There is also a discourse which is characterized by hate speech that aims to stigmatize a section of the population. And again, in the example of Tomio Okamura's program and speech, the aim is simple. We have to denounce corrupt elites, fight against the Islamization of society, and fight against immigration. And for SPD, Islam is a danger and can be destabilized, can destabilize Czech society. Tomio Okamura plays on the fear of Islam to explain that it's because of Islam that Europe would be in failure, and this failure must not reach the country. Thus, by finding a reason for the evil affecting the country, Tomio Okamura hopes to rely a large electorate behind his policy. However, the stigmatization of minorities, migrants, and Muslims is nothing more than a hate speech aimed at exclusion and which can threaten democracy. All the discourse is oriented and particularly lexical field is used. The terms of security, nation, identity, or threat became overused in populistic discourse. And these discourses incite hatred and fuel conspiracy theories. This is what we saw, especially now during the COVID-19 crisis. An important element which has to be added is the media, because the media is a relay for this discourse. Indeed, the media and particularly social networks are becoming intermediaries and relays for hate speech. Social networks such as Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and also websites and blogs participate in the dissemination of information and become the arena where extremist ideas are played out. So when we talk about populism, we realize that it's an ideology of contestation that aims to reestablish order, to reaffirm the voice of the people. And it's a discourse that is widely used by extreme right-wing parties as they instrumentalize social issues, stigmatize a potential enemy, and give the people a reason to unite and fight against corrupt elites. The dangers of populism lie in the way it spreads. Indeed, populistic discourses are more likely to be heard and supported by the people when the economic and social context is tormented. Populism exploits the difficulties of democracies. However, to fight populism, it seems that the dissolution of the extreme right-wing party is not the solution. It's perhaps better to opt for a more structural policy that aims to respond to the crisis and difficulties encountered. Indeed, we can see that the growth of populism in the Czech Republic, but also in Europe more broadly, is correlated with the beginning of the economic crisis in 2008, followed by the migration crisis in 2010, which peaked in 2015. And now, obviously, the COVID crisis. The crisis has created mistrust of the economic model and has had repercussions on the social body. Thus, national liberal policies can be envisaged to solve these problems. However, when defining a public policy, it's important to know who this public policy is going to affect. And focusing on young voters can be one of the solutions. Liberal parties could propose policies that would have an impact on young people, because young people are the future, the electorate. And fostering a better employment and so better employment integration policy to fight unemployment, and training and technological change to better adapt to the transformation of the labor market, but also to make young people aware of prejudices and sharpen their critical thinking, are proposals for policy measures that can fight populism. There is a need to restore balance in society rather than just fighting populism movements, by focusing more on the younger electorate and addressing current issues. Liberals can strengthen their electorate and fight populism. At the regional and international level, priority should be given to cooperation between the states, and the exchange of ideas and resources is a way of developing the country. It's for this reason that the Czech Republic has every interest in staying or strengthening its position within the Visegrad Group while moving closer to the European Union. Just to conclude, we can't forget that liberalism is an ideology. It's definitely rooted in the Czech nation. It's part of the Czech identity. Many political parties are based upon liberalism, thus liberal voters represent a large part of the Czech electorate. However, the economic crisis and the migration crisis, and now again the COVID crisis, have shaken European countries and led to the rise of extreme right-wing populism in Czech Republic. And these difficulties encountered by democracies have given strength to populist arguments. However, a national structural policy that prioritizes young people and provides them with the keys to understanding and critical tools, combined with a regional and international policy of cooperation, can be part of the liberal solution to populism. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharka. It seems that there's a lot of common issues like communication. I think it's also a crucial dimension when it comes to populism, which is also was mentioned by Blazej. I'm turning to Andrea. Please, if you would continue our panel with your presentation. Thank you.
Sure, thank you so much. I will share my screen in a minute, because I am fortunate enough to have some quite new data on Hungarian liberals. So I'm going to share some of the findings with you today. So, liberals of Hungary. This presentation is based on a research which was conducted between the 8th of January and 4th of February 2021 by Zavets Research for our Hungarian guests. 5,000 people were interviewed personally, and of course the results are representative of the Hungarian adult population by age, gender, level of education, and the type of settlement. So of course it's a great research, and with that large sample size, we are able to analyze smaller subgroups like liberals in Hungary. So how we can analyze liberals? There was a question in the survey that was which worldview describes you the best, and you see that respondents had 8 possibilities, and 14% of respondents chose liberal as the worldview which is closest to him or her. So of course, as you can see, the first one, the most popular worldview in Hungary now is nationalist, or more strong national people with strong national feeling, with 18%. The second most popular is order and stability, or law and order people, as you wish, with 17%, and not by far liberal is in the third place with 14%. It's more popular than conservative, socialist, green, environmentalist, religious, and social democrat. So you can see it. I think in itself it's a very interesting data regarding Hungary, because if you consider the Hungarian government, which since at least 2010, but I think earlier they use liberal as some kind of negative thing, and as you know, liberal equals evil things in Hungary now. Still 14% considers themselves liberal. I think it's very interesting and important to keep in mind, especially for of course liberal and opposition politicians in Hungary. So what we know about those who identify themselves as liberal, in this chart you can see a strong connection between age groups, level of education, and type of settlement. As you see, twice as many people in the age group of 18 to 39 consider themselves liberal than those older than 60. So it's 20% among the youngest age group, but only 9% in the group of older than 60 years old. So of course, the younger you go, the more liberals you get. So of course, liberal parties maybe could be more successful amongst younger people. Here you can see the same tendency that among people with university degree, so with higher education, twice as many people describe themselves as liberal than those with elementary school education. So and the tendency is very, very clear with the level of education. Also, with type of settlement, liberals are more likely to be found in bigger cities in Hungary. Of course, the highest number of liberals are in the capital city of Budapest, 19%, but still in towns or villages, which is of course a Fidesz stronghold in Hungary right now, still every 10th person describes themselves as liberal. So it's not nothing. You can see that liberal parties have something to do also in smaller towns and villages in Hungary, and it is important for them to try to reach out to those liberals living in those areas of the country. So also we took a look at the secondary worldviews of liberals in Hungary. As you can see, 30% of those who consider liberal as their first worldview consider themselves environmentalists at the second place. So it's a very high number. Almost 1/3 of liberals are also green environmentalist voter, and you can see the popularity of order and stability as still this is the second most popular secondary worldview amongst liberal voters in Hungary. But also I think it's important to see that social democrat and socialist worldviews are quite popular among liberal voters in Hungary, while as I showed you earlier, those two worldviews are quite unpopular in the total population. But you can see here a connection between liberalism and leftist ideologies in Hungary. And just to mention, the least popular worldview amongst liberals is religious worldview. So now I'm going to show you some data on some general questions and then more political, economical, social issues. So it was a general question. Do you think Hungary is going in a good or bad direction at the moment? On the left side, you see the total population, and on the other side, you see the results among liberals. So as you can see, the total population of Hungary is quite critical of the state of the country. More than half, 53% of respondents said that Hungary is going in a bad direction. But as you can see, liberals are far more critical of the state of the country. 2/3 of liberals think that we are going in a bad direction, and less than 30% said that we are going in a good direction. So generally, they are less content with the state of Hungary and how things are going in our country. This might be reflected in the party preferences. Of course, these smaller parties might be a bit too much for our international guests, but I think what is important to see that among liberals, still Fidesz is the most popular party. 1/5 of liberal voters are voting for a party which is proudly building an illiberal regime in Hungary. So it's very important to see that those labels are not everything, and people who consider themselves liberal still can vote for parties like Fidesz. Of course, you see that the second most popular party is Momentum with 15%. Of course, Momentum is in the Liberal Renew Europe group in the European Parliament, and belongs to the liberal network in the European sphere. So it's understandable that Momentum is doing better amongst liberals than in the entire population. So I think it's very important to keep in mind that not all liberals are anti-Fidesz voters. Of course, Fidesz is far less popular amongst liberals than in the total population, where Fidesz has around 33%, depending on the research you analyze. But 19% is still quite high, I think. So liberal parties has a job to convince liberals that Fidesz is not the party for them. And then some social issues in Hungary. This brings us back to a point that Blažej mentioned, that liberalism, as you said, in Poland is a cultural thing, and cultural liberalism is connected to a social and economical leftist thinking, and now I can show you some data that this is the same in Hungary. So we are talking about cultural liberalism rather than economic liberalism, because in this now you see some social issues like universal basic income, retirement age, and social spending. And here in the now on the left side you can see liberals, and on the right side you can see the entire population, and you can see that more than half of the respondents said that they support the introduction of universal basic income, which is of course it's not the main agenda of liberal politicians, but 33% supported universal basic income, and amongst liberal the support is the same. So that there's not much difference. And the second question was retirement age must be raised gradually. This is the only way to make the pension system sustainable, or on the contrary, retirement age should not be raised under any circumstances. And as you can see, more than half of the people, of the respondents, said that retirement age should not be raised under any circumstances. And the last one is that the state should increase social spending, even if it means raising taxes. And you can see that more than half of those who identify themselves as liberals agreed that the state should increase social spending, and only 1/4 of liberals said that taxes need to be reduced, even if this means less fund for social spending. And last but not least, let me show you some other mainly social, cultural issues. Maybe the two most important one in this chart is the first one, which is the support for same-sex marriage. You can see the opinions of the entire population again on the right side, and you can see that unfortunately the Hungarian population is not very much in favor of legalizing same-sex marriage. Only 28% said that same-sex marriage should be legal. However, 46% said that it should not be, or disagreed with that statement. So you can see that the relative majority and almost the absolute majority of the total population opposes same-sex marriage. However, if you look at liberals, the relative majority, 41%, said that same-sex marriage should be legal. So the numbers are better, but still it's not an absolute majority. So you can see, and still 33%, 1/3 of liberals didn't agree with this statement that same-sex marriage should be legal. So you can see that Hungarian liberals are still very divided on the question of same-sex marriage. The other very typical question is the fourth one, that the state should stay away from religion. It is a personal matter. You can see on the right side that 65%, so almost 2/3 of the entire population, agreed with this statement. So the Hungarian population is in general is very it is for the separation of the state and the church. But amongst liberals, this number is even higher. 76% of liberals said that the state should stay away from religion. So to conclude, I will go back to the previous, if I can, I will go back to the previous chart and just agree with what Blazej said about Poland, that in Hungary as well, those who consider themselves as liberal, and when we are talking about liberalism, we not necessarily talking about economic liberalism, and in many cases liberal economic ideas are often co-opted by rather right-wing conservative parties than by liberal or leftist parties. So when we talk about liberalism in Hungary, it's very important to remember that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrea. I think it was very, the data is very interesting. We will for sure discuss these findings. And last but not least, Viera, please, if you would continue the panel with your inputs.
Thank you. I will hopefully share with you my screen also, because I make a short presentation. and hopefully it will add a broader picture on the state of liberalism in our region. My presentation won't be based on data as Andreas. It could be more compared to Blažej, and also I would like to raise a question that concern me deeply, because right now, as you know, in Slovakia, we are reforming again a new government under new prime minister, and still this is a struggle between those who oppose former government under Robert Fico, and those who oppose current government because of their inability to rule. So these camps are fighting between each other. But let's make it clear. The main, I think, if you see my screen, hopefully, yeah. So the main purpose of the presentation is to go through the political parties that are liberal in my view, and those who are not. But my definition of liberalism will be based on the concept of open society rather than liberal values and attitudes, because right now we are quite messed it up, because the traditional cleavages disappeared from the Slovak party system, and new one or that were rooted in the society appeared. So right now in the parliament, if you see that there is a blue color marked those parties that are in the government still right now after 1 year of struggle. Hopefully they will remain there, or hopefully not, because we will see how current Prime Minister Igor Matović will act after he will remove from the office. So ordinary people and independent personalities. This is a political party that isn't able to define in a common sense of traditional political approaches, or even sociological one, or even the classical one that divides them into left wing, right wing, or others components. In general, I think ordinary people are anti-establishment, anti-system movement that is able to promote catch-all topics towards liberal leaders, towards conservative leaders, towards radical voters, and towards all segments of society in Slovakia that are highly distrustful towards to a system that are opposed of all the corruption history of party system in Slovakia, and who are highly, or more or less majority of them, are opposed towards the concept of open society. And this is, I think, for me crucial, because we need to distinguish those who are and those who are not representatives of open society. There is the other one, We Are Family. It's more or less the business party, who again, I see similarities with Andrea's presentation, that majority of those voters were also liberals who vote for We Are Family. Just to compare you the position of We Are Family in a European perspective, this party is in favor with the extremists from French, Netherlands, Hungary, Italy. So it's not a classical center-right party that is we are mentioned in the professional publication or case studies, and I think this is the main wrong tendencies that we are heading. there is the freedom of solidarity. Again, a center-right party described as Eurosceptic, libertarian party. Majority of voters are liberal voters, but on the other hand, the leader of Freedom and Solidarity, Richard Sulik, he's also famous for his anti-migrant approaches, anti-racial approaches, etc. So you see, this is something that makes it not possible to distinguish between the pure liberal parties who represent, let's call it true liberal values, and those who are offense towards globalization, open society concept, etc. Still, there are three other, the last but not least, the smallest one in the government is the Four People, Zaludi. It was the project of former President Andrej Kiska, who removed from the office quickly after the election in 2020. And there were tendencies to form Zaludi or Four People as a progressive force, but a conservative progressive force. But after this crisis in the government in current days, weeks, the progressive conservatives stood from the party and will forming something new in the future again. So right now, the Four People could be defined towards liberal voters as centristic and liberal also. There are three other parties, but I will jump to the next slide, because those parties are as you know, Smer Direction or the People Party are based on the same ground. They are social democratic, pro-European, left-wing. When we try to distinguish these two units, like Direction Social Democracy and Voice of Social Democracy, that the Voice is pro-liberal and pro-European also, to compare to the old Direction. There are also the fascist political party, Kotleba. Right now in the polls, they are decline, and they are over 3% of political preferences. So this is there are other parties, but what is my purpose of the presentation is to maybe answer the question of Daniel: what happens to the liberalism in Central Europe? Why we don't able to move forward and to maybe to build on new identities, new visions, or even new political forces. And this is something that I would like to cite a quote, a famous philosopher who tried to gave a speak about liberalism in the late 19th century. And he tried to define liberalism or liberal parties as those parties who were pro-open society, and those who were not, they were against. So my question right now, and I'm encouraging you, all of you that are listening, especially those speakers, because this is something that I think and I feel it that we have in common, that we need to maybe rebrand the concept of liberalism, not even in Central Europe, but to start discussion that if liberalism is just a value that is rooted deeply in all the parties, like also Fidesz Direction, also in those parties who are libertarian, progressive one, and to maybe to rebrand it in new concepts, and to maybe start to talk about the division of the voters. And this is something that I really agree with Blažej about the cultural liberalism, and I would like to propose the definition, or maybe just approach, or suggestions that our political parties in Central Europe right now could be divided, and this is something that is coming from the data that we have already present via focus groups and qualitative interviews, that we should distinguish between those parties who are representatives of open society concept, like equality, protection of human rights, solidarity, tolerance, equality, the equality position of minorities, the support of economic freedom, artistic freedom, the support of pro-immigration policies, the support of pro-European tendencies, and even the support of pro-international connection with those actors who are representatives of open society values. Yeah, and on the other hand, those political parties and voters who are against the concept of open society, which means they are rather traditionalist, they are rather with religion backgrounds, they are rather opposed of immigration policies, and they are opposed of those rights that are celebrating the equality of gender, the equality of minority rights, the equality of LGBT rights, and other forces. So the concept, or the presentation that I would like to finish or end will be with a short analysis that I prepare with my colleagues before we gave this presentation. And this analysis was based on the party manifestos of all relevant parties in the Slovakia party system, on the political rhetoric that was present after 2018 because of the last wave of transformation of party system after the death of Jan Kuciak and the mass protests, and political rhetoric of party leaders, and even the actions that were present in the parliament. So after we analyze and compare those four inputs to our really, it is a short analysis, and it is not based on some theoretical concept, even that I found political philosophers in 19th century who spoke about it. But this is something that we can discuss it and maybe make a clear picture on how we should distinguish those who are liberals and those who are not. So a short analysis, it's present you the concept of those political parties and even those voters in the political parties who are representatives of open society concept. And as you see, even Hungarian minority parties like Most Híd with the bridge, or together the progressive one, Progressive Slovakia for the people, freedom of solidarity, and even Voice Social Democracy are those political parties who stand on the concept of open society. Slightly less, it's the Christian Democrats, because they are right now moving from the moderate position towards more conservative values, and even current political party of current prime minister, ordinary people, and independent personalities, which is not a party at all, because they have only 4 members, but in the traditional view. And the last but not least, that is in the middle, it's another minority, Hungarian minority party, and because of also their rhetoric towards pro-urban government, pro-urban policies, and even about their vision of the purity of not only race, but the purity of Hungarian minority in Slovakia, and the historical division between those from Slovakia and us from the traditional historical region in Slovakia. So, and last but not least, those who are opposed to the concept of open society, including their voters, and this is that I need to mention, including really their voters. Some of them are liberals, but if you ask them about the concept of open society, the concept of the open state, the level of the tolerance, trust towards institutions, the trust towards people in general, these parties are highly not in favor of this concept, like direction. We are family of the businessman Boris Kollár, social Slovak nationalists who are not in the parliament right now, and the fascist political party in Slovakia, Kotleba, who is still in the parliament, but they are losing their votes because they were not able to survive COVID pandemic as an entity, and that they will transform themselves because they lose the most visible members in the last month also. So this is really a short presentation from my side, and more or less an open question towards all of you, because I'm a huge fan of liberal democracy, but right now, because of also the media discourse and the society discourse in Slovakia, we also started to rebrand it and to more or less use the concept of open society, because for us it is more clear. For us, it is more like more unifying component that will help us to divide those political parties and those segments of society who would like to live in 21st century and those who will not. So thank you again for your attention, and hopefully we will have a good discussion. And I'm looking forward for remarks and suggestions.
Thank you very much, Viera. Yes, we have the picture back. So now we have the first question, and I'm happy that you have this question, because I also wanted to discuss cultural liberalism and the differences between which actually Andrea and Blazsai also reflected on these issues. And I was just thinking about what could be the reason for that. Well, we had the data from Hungary, but probably in Poland, because Blazsai talked about it, how liberalism is rather a cultural issue and not an economic issue. What is the reason behind that? That for many liberals, it's about culture, and it's rather about a way of life. I think in many cases, at least in the 1990s in Hungary, when someone said, "Well, I'm liberal," it meant mostly that a liberal parent, or really it was something which had to do with open society. So my first question would be, should we really then reinterpret the meaning of liberalism? And what do you think? Could be the reason behind this this unique concept of liberalism in East Central Europe? I think it has a lot to do with how liberalism was more like a dissident movement in your region, while in the West it was more an established political ideology. But this is only my my thoughts about this uniqueness of liberalism. So, Blazsai, you already signed that you want to comment on that, then please we can start this round with you.
Yes, thank you. I would like to comment it shortly. I think that this idea of rebranding liberalism is something really important, and I totally agree with you, Vera, that we cannot say that somebody is liberal or pro freedom if somebody is not accepting open society. And I think that in our agenda, in our rhetoric, it should be outpointed very strongly. In Poland, for example, in our governing coalition, we have the small coalition party led by Jarosław Gowin, and they tend to say that they are pro free market and they are in fact liberals, but it's a kind of an absurd, in my opinion. They are against open society, and in fact they are supporting all anti-market solutions implemented by law and justice. So I think that this rebranding is something really important, and why liberal voters are more and more closer to this open society issues. I think that especially in Poland, it is the effect of let's say conservative or Catholic Church oppression, and more people have enough of it. This cultural dominance of Catholic Church, of conservative ideology. This is just the reaction of this actions made in Poland, and searching for more freedoms where it is the most needed. I think that this is one of the most important reason of this change. However, I still believe that liberals should also care for reasonable economic policy. I'm not the libertarian, but I think that we should not accept all left-wing economic solutions, and this is also a very important thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Vieira. If you wish to reply.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully I will be really short, because this is something. This is the final question. What about the cultural liberalism? Because I think it loses the sense of the pure competition that should be visible in the party system and even in the society. But why the cultural liberalism is so present in Slovakia? It was not, and because we were. I remember it in the 90s. We signed up a silence contract between conservative forces and liberal forces because of Mečiar. And this silent contract remained till 3 events appeared in the party system that completely changed the discourse. And they destroyed, I think, the silence contract between liberal and conservatives about the cultural issue. The first was the first mass protests in 2012. It was called Gorilla, when the connection opened, or when on the internet there were present dozen text messages and email exchanges that displays close relation between suspicious businessmen and corrupted elite with politicians. It was the first moment, the mass protests and the dissolution of the liberal government under Mikuláš Dzurinda, then Iveta Radičová. And the third was the not successful referendum on the protection of traditional family and children education. It was not successful, but however, the referendum brought forward the conservative elements to the Slovak society that were rooted in the society, but because of the silent contract, they were silent, you know. So, and the last but the least, that I think made the shift that the liberals and conservatives were not able to sign against such silent contract. And even before 2020, when they won over Robert Fico, was the murder of Jan Kuciak. So these three elements somehow make the biggest shift in the party system and even in the society, where the silence contract was broken. And right now, as in Poland, also in Slovakia, younger generation is moving towards this concept of open society and is against the current also conservative government in Slovakia. So we right now we are, I think, in the middle of the evolution of cultural liberalism in Slovakia, even in Poland, when I see the tendencies and similarities.
Thank you, Viera. Shaka, what do you think? Is it feasible, a good strategy to rebrand liberalism in East Central Europe with the concept of open society? How do you see from a Czech perspective?
Well, I think that the liberal electorate has changed differently in the V4 countries, and that several Central European countries, mainly Hungary and Poland, have in recent years explicitly raised doubts about the liberal model, which was adopted around 1989. In the Czech Republic, the liberal parties are still very strong, and most of the parties in the Czech Republic are liberal parties. And what can be noted that in Czech Republic is the multiplication of liberal parties. While in the past, the liberal force was contained in one or two major parties. Today, many parties claim their liberal values, and the electoral offer has consequences for the vote, and the liberal vote remains the majority. But regarding the cultural liberalism, I think the cultural liberalism is based on an attitude that respects individual and other people's freedom of opinion and action, and is opposed to authoritarianism. And economic liberalism is a doctrine hostile to state intervention in economic and social life. And the communist past of the V4 countries led them to adopt the liberal ideology. Thus, liberalism as a culture is a part of the identity of the V4 countries. But moreover, after 1989, they adopted a market economy and turned to economic liberalism. But in the Czech Republic, for example, economic liberalism is a principle supported by a part of the liberal voters, but it should be noted that the economic liberalism is not supported by all Czech liberal parties. And economic liberalism is a pillar of the program of the majority party, for example. But yeah, it supports the homogenization of the business environment, fight against corruption, the emphasis on low taxation and low debt, the reduction and rationalization of the state administration, and so on. But so yeah, it's then a question: what is just a promise and what is really kept?
Thank you, Andrea. When it comes to Hungary, then recently. Since the Trump presidency, a certain part of the Hungarian right wishes to introduce cultural debates, and they wish to actually demonstrate that there's some kind of gender ideology in Hungary, and that under the concept of open society, liberals wish to ruin families, and they wish to ruin a traditional way of life. So if we actually if we look at this rebranding, which was proposed by Vieira, would it actually function in Hungary, or it would, well, this this alt-right, this Hungarian alt-right, they would really just celebrate such an attempt, that actually liberals are acknowledging that they have such intentions?
Yes, well, it's a very interesting question, and yes, we do see an intention from the right wing of the Hungarian political side to make Hungarian politics about gender ideology and a lot of things that you mentioned. Especially, I think you are all familiar with the anti-George Soros campaign that the Hungarian government launched a few years ago, and now it's I can see it's not gone, but it's not as present as it was a few years ago. But of course, the campaign against George Soros was mainly about a campaign against open society. Of course, the foundation of George Soros is called the Open Society Foundation. So it was a given for Fidesz and for right-wing politicians to attack the idea of open society, and they openly said that they do not want an open society prevail in Hungary. So it was not some hidden intention, but they are very openly opposing the idea of open society, and of course accusing opposition parties with supporting open society. What I think it's important to remember about Hungary, that Fidesz is very successful in controlling the political agenda and the topics of the public discourse. So it's very rare we very rarely see in Hungary that the public discourse is not controlled by Fidesz, but some other things. Actually, COVID-19 was something new for Hungary and for the governing party as well, because of course it was something that was forced upon Fidesz to talk about, and not something that they could plan very carefully for months and with a lot of data. That of course what our position will be, with what we will accuse the opposition and so on. So it was something new, but the government is very successful in controlling the agenda and the public discourse, and to force the opposition to defend against accusations like promoting open society. So of course what we see is not for years what we've been seeing in Hungary is not an economic debate on how to bring prosperity to as many people as we can, but a debate on LGBT rights, on families, on freedom of education, freedom of culture, and so on. So we can go on and on. But the important thing is that the debate is not on economic issues. Economic policy is something that we have, and Fidesz has, and of course the opposition criticizes it, no doubt. But the main cleavage between Fidesz and the opposition, at least in the eyes of the wider electorate, is rather a cultural one, and is about cultural issues that we all mentioned before. So of course it's very tricky, and while opposition parties, or at least yes, a big majority of opposition parties culturally liberal, quite few of them really opposes liberal economic approach. So they are very, very far from libertarianism or any kind of liberal economic policy. So it's I think how Fidesz uses liberalism and open society in Hungary, and how I think most of us, or most of the Hungarians, think about liberalism is more like a pro-open society, culturally liberal approach than an economic one.
Thank you very much. We already have some questions here, so I'm gonna read them, and then we are going to continue our panel. But in turmoil, people historically turn back to strong leaders, and again. How can you change the representation of liberal values that the majority of people would not consider it weakness? So according to the question, a strong leader cannot be liberal. I think it's Blazej already talked about leadership. I think it's also interesting to consider. I would have to, I just wanted to ask about leaders. Where are the liberal leaders are coming from? I think it's also an important question because at least in Hungary, but I think in other East Central European countries, a successful entrepreneur is not seen as a good politician, but rather as a threat of corruption for the electorate. And the second question is, it's in Hungarian, I'm going to translate it. Economic neoliberalism, the ideology of economic neoliberalism is basically contradicts cultural liberalism. So these are the two questions that economic neoliberalism on the one hand and cultural liberalism on the other hand, and the contradiction between liberal values or liberal ideology and strong leadership. Blazej, maybe we can start with you.
Well, firstly, I always wonder what it means neoliberalism, because I really don't know. I think that we have some free market ideas, and in general, in my opinion, economic freedom is not in the conflict with cultural liberalism. But of course, we have to be aware that that we need taxes, that we need some social services, and of course, we have to care also for these people that cannot act so successfully on their own. But generally, capitalism and economic freedom is bringing wealth and is fighting with poverty. So it is really important to outline that economic freedom is not in the contrary to cultural liberalism, in my deep opinion. And in terms of strong leadership, I think that we can have strong leaders. They are at the same time liberals. I really don't see why it cannot happen. But of course, the strong leader is not authoritarian leader, and this is something completely different.
Can you give us, an example for a strong liberal leader? So maybe then it's easier to understand how these two things can.
Well, we can, of course, we can discuss what we mean by liberal leader once again. But for example, Barack Obama, or when we are watching on liberal transformation in Poland, Leszek Balcerowicz. These are examples of really strong liberal leaders. So this is not the contradiction.
Thank you very much. Sharka, please, if we can continue with you.
Thank you, it's a pleasure. I absolutely agree with Blazej that it's possible to be a liberal and to be a strong leader. And I can give you the example from a Czech history. It was Václav Havel. And that was our first president, and he was so liberal, and he actually helped our country very much. And for the people who don't know him, I can just mention many others like Milton Friedman, who was actually American economist, and he won even a Nobel Memorial Prize in economic science, and he was liberal, and he was a leader, and he influenced many people. And even in China, Lao Tzu, I think he is a founder of Taoism, and he was a huge liberal, and he influenced so many people who actually followed him, and so very strongly. And also like John Stuart Mill or Adam Smith, this is also, it has the impact to the economic. So I think we have many good examples. Who are the leaders? The important is how to, or who are liberal leaders, the important is how they can explain their ideas, and if the world is just prepared for these ideas in that moment, also the time and place means a lot.
Thank you, Andrea.
I can say I completely agree with what Blazej and Sharka said, and I don't see any contradiction between the two, and it is important for politicians, for liberal politicians, to also know that there is no contradiction between being a good, powerful leader and between championing liberal ideas. So I think what is important is not for us to acknowledge that, but also for young up and coming politicians to really have the courage to be openly liberal and for open society, and to fight for those ideas while seeking higher and higher offices.
Thank you very much. We have the same question to you, and there's a new question just came in, or at least I just realized that there's this question. I think you started to type an answer as I see it in this window. Hello, questions to all. How do you think liberal and conservative views can reconcile in order to overcome two emotional cleavages and mutual disrespect? So we are.
I will answer it because right now the first about the strong liberal leaders, I will jump immediately and say Zuzana Čaputová. She is the president of Slovak Republic. She is a liberal. I remember one of the title of one newspaper who called them a spiritual liberal. Yeah, this is something that it's. You try to have those spiritual traditions that are rooted in Slovak society, and her rhetoric is like it's more open, calm, very positive. It's compared to others, men, especially in Slovak party politics. The rhetoric is completely different. And this is how she succeeded and how she changed the political communication in that time, not now, in that time in Slovak Republic, but even now during the pandemic. She represented the voice of normality, the voice of success, of the science, etc. So there could be strong leaders, liberal leaders, who have the tendency to become not only visionaries, but, for example, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, another woman, the whole Finnish government. So maybe this should be open a question if liberal women are not maybe the new force who could bring back liberal voters again to the threshold. So this is also a question and suggestion about neoliberalism. It's something that I make a lot of jokes towards my Slovak colleague about it, because right now we finish our economic transformation in Slovakia, the neoliberalism transformation. We are successful in Central Europe region. All our countries are successful when it comes to the economic side of our transformation. We were successful after 2004 when we entered the European Union. We are successful still when we compare our societies back 30 years ago in the economic level. And right now we open a new path or new door that is concerning the cultural transformation of our societies. And this is something that is deeply rooted for the position of liberal voters. And the last but not least, the questions that I tried to type myself towards the audience was that why we should have a bridge between conservative and liberal values, because I just jumped quickly. I read it, it was 2 weeks ago, a wonderful book published by Liliana Manson, an associate professor of government politics at the University of Maryland. And the book was called Uncivil Agreement, How Politics Became Our Identity. And she replied to those voices that are celebrating let's call it the nostalgia of American party system, that conservative and Democrats were willing to discuss the same issues, and they're willing to find compromises. And right now they are not able to find any compromises. And this is something related to liberal and conservative forces in our countries, why we should find compromises, because as Mrs. Manson replied that we are not able because we lose the voters, and especially the politicians in the parties who have cross-cutting identities, willing to find compromises and consensual solution. Right now, we don't have it. So the question for me is not if we are able to find, but if we should find, because also this is a process of structural changes in the society, in the party system, and we need to gain more and more information about it, and more information if we are able to find those people with cross-cutting identities that are pro not only European but pro finding compromise and consensual democracy. So this is the answer. Just read Lillian Maryland, and yeah, it's a wonderful book. I recommend it highly.
Thank you, Raj, for the recommendation. And then I'd like to finish with this last question to the others as well. So once again, I'm going to read it once again. How do you think liberal and conservative views can reconcile in order to overcome two emotional cleavages and mutual disrespect? And then we're going to continue with Blazej, and then Sharka and Andrea at the end with this final question, please.
Well, this is very difficult in these times of hot political conflict, but I have very, very simple answer from somebody very important for my developments, Professor Zbigniew Pełczyński, who has made the schools of leaders in Poland. And his advice is very simple, just to talk with people, personally talk with people who have opposite views to yours, and try to be open for their ideas. I don't know if it will help, but I think that this personal perspective and talking, not in the media, but in some private occasions, is something really important, and is making the connections. We better understand people with other views, and we also can see just humans in ourselves, and we can also find some things that are similar for us. So yes, I think that talking with people with other views is very important, especially in times of this internet bubbles, when we are seeing only people with similar views like ours.
Thank you, Blazej. Sharka?
I agree with what she actually said on Blazej as well, because I don't see the point that there has to be differences between the conservatives and liberals. And I hope that especially this current situation, the crisis which changed and damaged so much, is at least the opportunity for the people who have completely different points of view to finally start to work together and to help the society and the countries, because this is the most important. We have to now be connected. We have to not to think about our own good things which will influence our life, but also about the others. And this is the perfect opportunity. It's sad that it's a crisis, but at least now some people can start to think more like how to help, even when they have different opinions.
Thank you, Andrea.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, I think it is a very interesting question, and it could bring us to a whole new debate on what conservatism is, because also how liberalism could mean many things. Conservatism can also mean a lot of things. And of course, we saw, and actually we're still seeing this whole debate in the US within the Republican Party, whether which wing of the Republican Party is truly conservative or not, and see this whole debate between the Trumpists and the let's say traditional side of the Republican Party. But also I think if we look closer in Hungary, many people would consider Fidesz as a conservative party, and actually they brand themselves as a conservative party, while many, including myself, would argue that the majority of Fidesz's policies are not really conservative, and actually quite the contrary. So it's very difficult. But maybe to finish on a positive note, I think we can bring a quite a good example from Hungary, where we see that the majority of the opposition parties, the 6 major opposition parties, are now decided to cooperate and join their forces for the 2022 general elections. And of course, in that coalition, you see the more conservative Jobbik joining forces with liberal momentum. So of course, it's a very special cooperation and under very special circumstances. But we can see that a conservative party and the Liberal Party can have many things in common, and in order to achieve those goals in Hungary right now, they are willing to cooperate, while of course having many differences. So I think it's a positive example and shows how those two can cooperate.
Thank you very much. So at least in the Hungarian case, there's some kind of mutual respect and not disrespect. Thank you very much for our panelists. Thank you for the audience, for your attention and for the great questions. Now we are going to have a break until noon. We are going to also show you a short clip by Republican Institute, which aims to explain the primary election process. So stay with us also in the break. And after the break, from 12 o'clock, from noon, we are going to discuss the same issues, liberalism in the grasp of illiberalism and liberal voters in Hungary and in the region, with Anna Donát, with Bálint Magyar and Krisztián Nyári. And the moderator at that time is going to be my colleague Gábor Horn. So thank you once again for our panelists. Thank you for accepting our invitation. And please join us again from 12 o'clock. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much again. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Legyen újra előválasztás. Az előválasztás célja a legesélyesebb ellenzéki jelöltek megtalálása. Az előválasztással az ellenzéki pártok a te kezedbe adják a döntést arról, hogy melyik jelöltet akarod látni a parlamentben. Az előválasztás sikeresen vizsgázott 2019-ben. Az esemény hetekig uralta a sajtót, és a kormánypropaganda ellenére magas volt a részvétel. Ez az egyetlen eszköz, ami képes a torz választási rendszerből, a hamis nyilvánosságból és az állami erőforrások eltérítéséből eredő hátrányokat enyhíteni. Javasoljuk tehát, hogy az ellenzéki pártok tartsanak közös országos előválasztást a 2022-es választások előtt a győzelem érdekében. A A résztvevő pártok és jelöltek a győztes miniszterelnök jelöltet nevezik meg saját miniszterelnök jelöltjüknek. Az egyéni választókerületek győzteseit pedig közös egyéni jelöltként indítják az országgyűlési választásokon. Részt vehet minden magyar állampolgár, aki betöltötte a 18. életévét és aláírta az értéknyilatkozatot. 5000 ajánlás szükséges a miniszterelnök jelöltségre, 500 ajánlás az egyéni választókerületek jelöltjeinek. Erre a jelölteknek 3 hetük van. A jelöltek aláírják az értéknyilatkozatot, és elfogadják az ellenzéki pártok által kidolgozott, a közös kormányzás alapelveiről szóló dokumentumot. A szavazás az egész országban azonos időpontban zajlik. A jelöltek szakmai viták sorozatával véglegesítik a közös programot. Listára a miniszterelnök jelölti előválasztás első fordulójában szavazhatnak az állampolgárok. Listát az erről már megállapodó, illetve a hozzájuk csatlakozó pártok állíthatnak. A szavazólapon szerepeljen az adott előválasztási listát vezető 5 politikus neve is. A járvány miatt tavasz helyett nyárvégi, kora őszi előválasztást javaslunk. Az előválasztást tehát 2021. augusztus végén kell megkezdeni, hogy október közepére megtaláljuk a közös jelöltet. A közös jelöltek kampányában a választási győzelem érdekében nagyon fontos lesz az egységes kommunikáció és a közös arculat. Érdekel, hogyan képzeljük el részletesen a miniszterelnöki, az egyéni és listás előválasztást, a kommunikációt, a szervezést és a finanszírozást? Keresd fel a republikon.hu weboldalt és olvasd el a teljes javaslatot.
Hello.
Hello. Én most nem látom magamat egyáltalán, ami nem baj.
Szia, Anna.
Te, Péter, hallasz?
Szervusztok.
Abszolút.
Sziasztok, én hallatszom?
Hogyha teljes képernyőről kilépsz, Gábor, akkor meg fog jelenni oldalsávban mindenkinek az arca is.
A sajátomat én se látom. Csak titeket.
Pedig ott vagy.
Nem, mint a hiányoznék magamnak.
Én se hiányzom, csak én szeretném...
A videódat kapcsolt be.
Nem, én nem kapcsolhatom be. Azt írja, hogy host has stopped it.
Akkor mindjárt. Attila, hallasz minket?
Igen, most kint van egy kezdőképernyő, azt lekapcsolom.
Be lettem engedve.
Igen, és akkor most mindenki lát mindenkit.
Mindenki lát mindenkit.
Igen, szervusztok.
Szia.
Most már jobb a helyzet, sokkal.
Egy pillanatra egyébként a Bálint is föltűnt.
Igen, ott valami szobában üldögélt, csak eltűnt aztán.
Attila, nézd meg Bálintot. De lehet, hogy megijedt és visszalépett.
Ja, meg akarja úszni.
Igen, de nem fogja.
Anna, te itthon vagy most, vagy kint vagy Brüsszelben?
Itthon vagyok, mostanság ritkábban járok ki, illetve most úgynevezett zöld hét van.
Aha.
És először az LP történetében 2 darab zöld hét egymás után, úgyhogy senki nem tudja, mit kezdjen ezzel a sok szabad idejével. Csak viccelek. De most húsvéti szünet is van.
És itt van Bálint is. És te hogy tudsz utazni, hogyha nem zöld hét van?
Nagyon nehézkesen, mert nincsen direkt járat, úgyhogy Frankfurton vagy Amsterdamon keresztül olyan nettó 6 és 8 óra közötti időtávval odafele is tesztelés, megérkezéskor is tesztelés, eljövéskor is tesztelés, rengeteg papírral, így.
Istenem.